Стивен уже после 12 лет написал свой первый словарь, где собрал разные данные из области физики. В возрасте 20 лет он защитил свою диссертацию в Калифорнийском институте технологий, в его комиссии также работал Ричард Файнер, которого многие из нас знают, говорят о физике, с которым Стивен много лет работал вместе. В возрасте 21 года Стивен стал профессором Калтека, самым молодым, получив стипендию Макартура. В дальнейшем, в 1987 году, получается, Стивен начал дальше после Калтека работал в Институте промышленных исследований, Институте национальной исследований. В дальнейшем, в 1987 начал работать в математике, то есть запуск, точнее, математика — это язык, который используется сейчас миллион действительно математиков, алгебраистов по всему миру, который дает действительно вычислительные мощности. В дальнейшем, через 10 лет, Стивен посвятил написанию своего документального труда, который называется New Kind of Science, новый вид науки. Книга вышла в 2002 году, можете посмотреть, 1200 страниц. Это монументальный труд, в котором он говорит о действительно вычислительной вселенной, сингулярности, действительно больших, важных вещах. 2009 год Стивен выпускает Wolfram, это вычислительная такая система, которая используется, происходит бит. У вас iPhone есть в руках, когда вы говорите Siri, какое расстояние отсюда до Луны, или каково отношение населения страны к населению в Алмате. На все эти вопросы отвечает Wolfram. Но и в 2014 году, наверное, кульминацией с 7-летнего труда является именно запуск языка программирования Wolfram Language. Такой новый функциональный язык программирования, который действительно показывает, действительно является, скажем, совмещением знаний, алгоритмов и самых лучших, действительно, последних трендов разработки языков программирования. Давайте поприветствуем Стивена Wolframa. Сейчас он расскажет вам.
Thanks very much. Well, it's great to be with you all this evening. I have no idea what was just said, so I may contradict everything. I was told to give a 20-minute introduction to my life and times, so I've kind of alternated between developing technology and developing science for the last 30-something years. Let me show you a little bit of the technology. So you may have seen Wolfram Alpha, which powers things like Siri. Let's see if this works. The idea of Wolfram Alpha is you ask a question, it tries to give you an answer. So if I say, what is the integral of x squared sine cubed x? This will be a mathy kind of question, and it will try and give us the answer to that question. And typically the way it works is it will answer the question and then tell us other things that it thinks we might find interesting based on the question we asked. It relies on the web, so it's a little slow for some reason. Yeah, well, there we go. It gave us some more answers here. Or we could ask a different question. We could say, what is the population of Almaty? And it will know that because it knows a lot about the world at large. If it can connect to the web. Come on, connect to the web. If it's disconnected, then we're toast. No, let's see. This is going to work. This should take about 500 milliseconds. If somebody, well, this is not going to be any fun if this doesn't connect. Anybody able to help here? Oh, now suddenly it's waking up. I don't know if somebody is able to, I think it took us a little bit of effort to get this computer connected so it can display everything. I think the wireless connection is also somehow flaky. Okay. I'm going to load up data about movies. Let's realize it's it's loading up data about 30,000 movies. And let's do this. Let's get instead of that, let's get a random sample of 30 movies. This loads up. Come on, here we go. Should work. Let's see. Okay. Let's get a random sample here of movies. Well, it's complaining about that. It's not network issue. Okay, so here's 30 random movies. And now let's, for example, let's get images associated with those 30 random movies. And so let's see if this works. Come on, wake up. Okay, so there are some movie posters. And so, for example, let's delete the ones that are missing there. And then let's say, for example, okay, so there are some movie posters. Now, for example, we could just make an image collage of those movie posters. There we go. Or we could say, let's take the list of movie posters and let's find the dominant colors in those movie posters. And let's get that result. There they are. And let's, for example, let's plot those colors in a three-dimensional color space. So there's the result. You can see kind of which colors were popular in those particular movies. Whoops, did we lose the videos? So what I was showing you was the dominant colors of the movie posters, and I was showing you plotted in space. So there's lots of kinds of data that we know. So for example, I could say something like, I could look up the town. I could look up the city of Almaty, okay? And now I could say, for example, draw me a map with a disk that is, let's say, 10 kilometers around here. And I could say, make me geographics that is 10 kilometers around the center of Almaty. And let's see if this hopefully that's Almaty. And you could go ahead and I could change that 10 kilometers to, let's say 5,000 kilometers, and we'll get a quite different picture. But this is all part of the data that's included in our language. Well, you can take. So another thing you can do is I'm running the language here on my desktop computer, but the language runs on lots of different kinds of machines, and it also runs in the cloud. So everything that I'm doing right now, I could also just do through a web browser in the cloud. And I can also deploy things to the cloud. So if I was going to build a mobile app, I could do that right here and deploy it to the cloud. So for instance, I can say, this seems to be my favorite example of this, I can say, make me a mobile app which will take the name of a breed of cat and show me an image of that breed of cat. Let's say magnified 3 times, and let's say we'll put it on the web as a PNG, and let's make this a public form. Let's see. Okay. So now what this is going to do is it's going to deploy this piece of Wolfram language code to the web, and then when I go here, I should get a little web app that I just created, and here I can type in a breed of cat, and it'll go back to our server and produce a picture of cat. Okay, let's chat.
So, you had a great presentation, and we'll just spend the next, I guess, time here. I'll quickly do a quick fireside chat in 20 minutes. We'll ask you a quick questions today. This is part of Started by Armani, which is a kind of event we started last year. This kind of event will trigger entrepreneurship spirit in science and technology, and that will definitely kind of inspire students at KD2 and over on Armani to build fantastic things. So I really want to just focus on a few things with outside of science and technology and talk more about your career path. So let's start from the very beginning. Tell us who influenced you the most when you were a child?
I'm one of those people who likes to be influenced very much by other people.
Okay.
So I grew up in England, and I got interested in science when I was pretty young, and I started reading books particularly interested in physics, and I read my way through college textbooks and so on about physics. And so by the time I was 14 or 15, I decided it was more interesting to try to answer questions that had not been answered before than to do exercises in college textbooks. And so I started doing research kinds of things, and I started publishing papers and such like when I was maybe 15 or so. And I was really a physics kid. I worked on particle physics and cosmology. I'm happy to say the things that I worked on, quite a few of the pieces of physics that I did are still used today, many years later. But I went to college briefly in Oxford in England, and then I stayed there over a year or so, and I went to graduate school at Caltech. And I should have made the effort to finish my PhD while I was still a teenager, but in fact I didn't finish my PhD until I was 20 years old. One of the things that had happened in doing physics was that I needed to do lots of mathematical calculations, and I was not personally very good at doing sort of mechanical algebra that you need to do in mathematical calculations. And so I said, there's got to be a better way to do this, and I realized computers could do this. So I started using computers to do mathematical calculations, and I used systems other people had built. Then in 1979, right after I got my PhD actually, I realized that the system that I really wanted was one that nobody had built. So I would have to build a system myself to do mathematical computation. So I built my first big computer system around 1980. And then I realized at that point I was a professor, a physics professor. I realized that if I was going to do something with this computer system would be useful to a wide range of people, not just me, and so I should distribute it. And so I ended up starting my first company to distribute that computer system. I made many mistakes in my first company.
Some of them being...
one of them was not being its CEO. I hired somebody to be the CEO of the company. What I realized later is if you're the person who has the vision and really understands what the goals are, you've got to be the CEO. That's really the only possible thing. If you can't be the CEO, it's probably not going to work. And I think so then I wanted to actually use the tools I built to do basic science, and I ended up developing a big area of basic science. That's area often called complex systems research, complexity theory. I was interested in kind of doing something which sort of generalizing the approach to making models in science that have been adopted for 300 years or so, and I made a lot of great progress on that. And then by the mid-1980s, I really made a lot of very interesting, I thought, scientific progress, but I needed better computer tools to make further progress. So that's how I ended up starting to build Mathematica. Around Mathematica, I built the second company, which I made many fewer mistakes, and it's been a healthy company for 28 years. So that's a good sign. What's ended up happening is I built Mathematica as a tool, then I started using Mathematica to do more science. I did this very big science project that turned into a big book called A New Kind of Science. It took me about 10 years to write. And from that book, I figured out a bunch of new sort of basic ideas. And among the things that those basic ideas led to was Wolfram, and now I'm using those ideas also for the Wolfram language. And so it's kind of been this alternation of doing basic science and using that science to build technology. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So let's do a few blitz questions, and then we'll final one. We'll definitely open it up for the audience. I'm sure much more interesting questions than I do. So, a few blitz questions, just really quick, rapid fire. 3 people who come to your mind when you hear the word mental.
I'm not bad at this, I'm sorry.
The first issue.
That involved for me?
Well, not necessarily for you, but just Here we put an answer to this first person can't say one.
I'll pause.
Okay, sounds good. No problem. Mistakes, most common mistakes you see entrepreneurs make over and over again.
Most common mistake that I see people make in general is disconnecting